The world wants to see what Africa got. We have a lot of rich narratives, rich storytelling that you can tell. So much creativity. You're seeing even the tech ecosystem. A lot of companies are booming right now. So we are like, okay, let's show the world. Let's show the world.
Yeah.
Our first game is called Mzito, and it's based off, we call it the Mzito Universe, kind of like the Marvel universe. And since we've been doing a lot of African research, philosophy, and all those things, you're like, okay, let's create something that has depth and meaning. Stepping into entrepreneurship for us, like you've mentioned, being a young person and you want to start something new, it takes a lot of leadership, it takes a lot of belief in yourself. So we were like, okay, we want to empower ourselves, we want to actualize our potential.
Yes.
How can gaming make sense for African businesses? And first, we have to understand, what does value look like to the African customer?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the My Tech Story Africa podcast. My name is Alice Kanjejo, your lovely host, and today we have a special guest and a special topic that I don't seem to engage with too many people who do what James Ahere is doing. Before I introduce him, I'll take this time to remind you to subscribe from wherever you're listening from, whether that's on YouTube or Spotify or any of the major platforms. Check out our website at mtsafrica.co and follow us on all our socials at My Tech Story Africa. That out of the way, James, thank you so much for gracing my invite and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you as well. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
So my name is James Ahere, co-founder of Weza Interactive Entertainment. We're a video game studio. So in my role, I'm the lawyer and also business development lead for Weza Interactive Entertainment.
Okay, curious to know more about that space. I think the video game industry is something that, quite frankly, I rarely bump into people that are pursuing that. And also, perhaps there's a perception that there's not too much of a market or capability for that to be successful in Africa. So this is an interesting conversation for anyone who potentially might want to actually explore that. Before we get to that though, tell us about your journey. Where did you begin? You mentioned you were a lawyer. So is that where it started? How did you get into the space?
Okay, so yes, I am a lawyer. It first started with my brother. My brother is actually the co-founder of Weza Interactive Entertainment. He's the CEO. So he studied in China, and he studied software engineering, and he always wanted to become a game developer. So around his third year, he interned at an animation studio, which does, animation work for global studios, even Cartoon Network and all these other game development companies. And he created this concept of a game. It started like with stick people and whatnot. And he shared the idea with me. And at that time, I was also in law school. We were both in university. I'd been doing a lot of research about African history just with my friends. And he was also going through the same journey. And we were like, let's create a game that showcases Africa. And I was like, yeah, for sure. And he said, he'll be the tech, I'll be the business, because I was in a business school.
Yes.
And through that, we were able to create Mzito, our first game. We incorporated a lot of African elements, history, identity, and things like that. And we just wanted to showcase Africa. There's a narrative about Africa being corrupt, just poor, or just so many negative narratives.
Yes.
And for us, through our research, we were able to actually see that, Africa is actually really awesome. We have so much rich history. And we wanted to share that to the world.
You wanted to shed light into the world. And when is it that you launched Mzito?
So we first launched in 2016. My brother graduated before me, and he came into the country, and we launched it with a couple of other friends of ours, other co-founders, and we submitted the product for a certain opportunity. It's called the French Tech Ticket.
Okay.
So this French Tech Ticket is actually an incubator within France. France was trying to become a central startup hub, just like Silicon Valley and Berlin. So they let out, this promotion, like, guys, come through to, France, get incubated, improve your organizational capacity, your product. And we are the first lucky representatives of Kenya in that program. So my brother flew out with my other co-founder. I wanted to graduate, stayed in the country. got funding, improved the product. So the official publishing of that first product, Mzito, was in 2017.
And it's from how you speak, you were based in Nairobi wrapping up your university. Your brother was at that time still in China, and then now you're having or you were applying and going for the French opportunity. I'm curious to know what market you guys were focusing on. I know there was an emphasis on African culture. So just curious, within that launch at that time, were you targeting the whole world, or were there specific places that you were targeting market-wise, and how was that experience after you first did the launch as well?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I'd want to say is the global gaming industry is actually very lucrative. In terms of revenue generation, it's making by last year 300 billion USD. So for us, we wanted to be a part of that market and not only have the African market as our sole market, but the global industry.
Yes.
My brother and I think big.
Yes.
So for our product, of course, it's Afrocentric, it's African-centric, showcasing culture, our identity and all. So the question is, does the global market actually appreciate what we're trying to show?
Good question.
And actually, the thing is, the world is actually looking for new stories. A lot of stories have been told from the Western markets, the Hollywoods, Europe and all that.
How many more of the LA games representation will we have?
Yeah. So now we were like, if you look at the music industry, everyone is appreciating Amapiano, Afrobeat. So many record labels are setting up in Africa. We have the likes of Lion King, Black Panther that are doing really well globally. So we are like, okay, the world wants to see what Africa got. We have a lot of rich narratives, rich storytelling that we can tell. So much creativity. You're seeing even the tech ecosystem. A lot of companies are booming right now. So we are like, okay, let's show the world. Let's show the world.
Yeah.
So globally, we have gamers. Our target audience, we have the global gaming industry, but we're focusing on mobile. Mobile is actually the biggest market compared to console gaming and PC. So we are like mobile gamers, and then we have Africans, and then we have diaspora, and then we have people interested in Africa. Maybe somebody wants to travel to Africa, check out the Maasai, or just any kind of touristic region, and we're like, okay, we feel like our segmentation, we had to do a lot of research, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah, so we felt like our segmentation was a strong one.
Yes.
And it would work.
So you've launched the product. It's now officially in the market. A year later, what was the journey like?
So the journey was like, so fresh into the incubator 1 year later, they told us to incorporate our company. So that's what I did here in Kenya. And now, once you've incorporated, now I'm out of university, I've just graduated, and I'm like, okay, so we have a company, I have to manage it, we have to have a business.
Yes.
So we had to move from...
How old were you at this time, if you don't mind me asking?
This was 2017, so I just turned... I was actually 23 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big part of this story, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, proceed.
Yeah, so we were young. Of course, we were excited. We just got funding, or we've gotten incubated, and we are like, okay, these guys are actually taking us seriously. On that side, my bro and my other co-founder are in the midst of, startups that are really ahead. This is Europe. And so, it was a great challenge for them to be with guys who are so advanced in their in their journey. And then also for me, I'm in Kenya and I have to match up with what they're being exposed to. So a lot of capacity building. I had to get into an incubator myself.
Yes.
And this is...
Which one?
I got into IBIS at Strathmore at the 5th floor. And I just had to start teaching. Okay, they taught me a lot of business acumen, how to set up a company really well. Of course, you've already incorporated, but all the things that you need to think about, from the finance, accounting, HR, legal, and all that. And one thing that was very straightforward to us was that we needed to build our capacity. Yes, we had a product, a mobile gaming product, but then the gaming industry in Africa or in Kenya was still at its infancy. I would say we were even like the OGs. One of the first guys back in 2016, 2017. So we didn't have any references of who can we look at? Because if you look at the companies abroad, them they're way ahead. The revolution of gaming started in the 80s.
Of course.
You know, us, ours, I don't know, we started in 2016. You
Okay,
know,
so you guys are later pap.
you know, so we are like, you guys, we need to figure this out.
Yes.
So a lot of research, and then also even internships. I had to step into some companies. Of course, I had to focus on the startup, on the studio, but then I had to step into an organization and actually learn how, you know, HR happens,
how
how
things
teamwork
work.
happens, leadership, and all
Yeah.
those things. So, yeah, that was that.
Sorry, before you proceed, I do have a question. There's a common saying of opportunities when luck meets preparation. Would you say that you weren't prepared to receive this opportunity? You kind of were
So-
just feeling it out, and then it happened.
We had the intention. We didn't know what it would actually, you know, sometimes you want to, you pray for something, you want to manifest it, but then once it comes, you're like, oh, this is actually really heavy, this demands so much from
Yes.
us. So like there was that realization. We didn't know how big it was, like the journey. So even thinking about the vision of what we really want to achieve in the next 5 years, 10 years, that's something that we really had to think about. Even as a team, like we were young, fresh out of graduation. Yes, two of my co-founders have gone to France, but then they had to think about also money, because now, you know, your folks are like, oh, you guys, you need to contribute to the family, or, you know, you need to take care of
Black
yourselves.
tax.
So you're like, yes, you're building a startup, you have to start thinking about monetization, but the monetization is slow.
Yeah.
So you're like, those realities start hitting you. So
Hitting
it also affects the team dynamics.
Of course.
And some of those things actually affected us. One of the co-founders left, he decided to pursue other things, and it also affected us. But we were like, no, this is part of the journey,
Yes.
and yeah, we're still here.
You're still here. I think that's a very important conversation to have, because, you know, there's when you're in the space and the startup and building up, you know, space, there's emphasis on, you know, I mean, just life in general. You're pushing yourself, you know, being ready, being able to build a business. Everybody should be a founder, but there's a lot of implications that come with that, especially when you're young, because I come from a generation of, I mean, me myself, having left a job to pursue a startup or entrepreneurship, without that extra background and not knowing how much that could impact. I mean, I'm learning now how much it impacts, but I also think you were not wrong, in my opinion, for saying like, fuck it, let's do this, and see, and the opportunity came. I think that's also the mentality that we are still taught what to do, how to think of things, like release the product even if it's not perfect, and then you figure it out as you go. So I think it was a valuable part of the journey, although, as you've mentioned, it was tedious, especially also being in different locations. And so we are proceeding now with you and your brother as co-founders, and you're trying to build Mzito. I think before I ask my next question, could you just give an overview of what the game is exactly?
Okay, so our first game is called Mzito, and it's based off, we call it the Mzito Universe, kind of like the Marvel Universe. And since we had been doing a lot of African research, philosophy, and all those things, we were like, okay, let's create something that has depth and meaning. Stepping into entrepreneurship for us, like you've mentioned, being a young person and you want to start something new, it takes a lot of leadership, it takes a lot of belief in yourself. So
Yes.
you are like, okay, we want to empower ourselves, we want to actualize our potential.
Yes.
So it started from a philosophical point. So this Mzito Universe, we have 5 African spirits, which represent African identity, values, and culture. So these African spirits, if you look at our website or our games, they are represented by 5 masks. So the first mask is called Shuja. Shuja is like a lion mask, and it represents leadership and wisdom. So our first game, we call it Mzito, but it's a representation of the Shuja mask. So the player goes on a journey around Africa to discover beautiful touristic destinations like Lake Nakuru, Giza Pyramids, the Congo forests, and so many other regions. And through this, we are educating you. You're leading yourself to know Africa. So, leadership and wisdom. So through knowledge of self and knowledge of Africa, we are able to conquer the corruption, because basically the storyline is there's a corruption that has made the people of Africa sleep. So you're supposed to awaken them. And now we have this element called the sleeping lion. So the sleeping lion is your inner potential. So you're supposed to awaken this inner potential. So all this, you go through all these locations, awaken the sleeping lion, conquer the corruption, and then you bring back hope to Africa. But then now Africa is still disjointed. We're still separated. So now we step into the current products that we're making, which is called Riziki. This is the second mask. So Riziki is two words, rhythm and Ziki.
Yes.
And it represents unity. So you're uniting Africa. So we are like one vibration, one frequency, music. No matter where you're from, you can listen to Amapiano, Lingala, even French music, and you'll still understand. You don't need to understand, but you just feel the vibe. So we are like, okay, music unites people. So let's unite Africa through music. So Riziki. And this current game, we are currently uniting Africa through African, we're not uniting, yes, we are uniting Africa and also the world. The world.
But inviting them into...
You're inviting them into what it means to be African through our music.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really like that explanation. And as you've mentioned, like, I mean, I'm not too much of a gamer, but even when I hear people in the games that they're playing, I like that there's one that I can relate to and that has that African element first, and it's from home. And so very excited to try the games myself, actually. And you said that when did you guys get into Riziki, and why did you say, okay, we're going to launch this second product as well?
So after, a couple of years, my bro's still in France, and one of our co-founders leaving. So we still had a couple of team members, and one of them told us, you guys, we have been pushing this Mzito thing for so long.
Yeah.
And he wanted another challenge. He was like, because, we were trying to focus now on the monetization, trying to make money. And he was like, nah, you guys, we've been doing this for 4 years. Like, we need to move on. So we were like, okay, so let's move on. And now we had to get back into the books, the research. We're like, okay, so now what's the next game? We have 5 masks, but we're like, now what game are we creating? So we came into Riziki. We were like, okay, hope. Africa now has hope, but now what's the next step for Africa? Because you see, even when you ask yourself what it means to be African or African games, we are also going personally through that journey. And you're like, let's unite Africa. So even as we're creating that game, that sense of unity in the game, even as we had to unify with the industry in terms of collaborating, looking for partners, looking to even expand the team, things like that, distribution partners, publishing partners. Yeah.
Were those things that you would say you were not doing previously and kind of focused on just you guys and not collaboration with others?
I would say we collaborated. Mzito, as it is right now, the graphic design, the 2D animation, it was actually somebody in France. But now we wanted to bring it back to Kenya, because even the amount of expenses we paid just to get a French professional to make for us, to improve Mzito, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money, plus also taxes. So now we're like, now we're going to bring this expertise back to Africa.
Yes.
And now when we were able to do that, we were like, okay, Riziki is going to be centered around Africa. So it's not only Kenyan developers, but we're going to explore, SA or Nigeria and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, would you classify, I mean, from 2017 when you first launched to now 2025, how would you classify the gaming or the video game industry in general in Africa? Are you seeing progress? Are you seeing competitors, or are we still kind of stagnant?
Oh, we have grown. I normally tell my brother, you guys, if you if you continue joking, thinking at because we are the OGs, and at like things are always going to remain the same way, we are like one of the top studios in Kenya, then we have another thing coming, because there are guys even in their own rooms, like in JQuat, because that's where computer science, a lot of computer science students come from. There are guys who are creating games in their own rooms,
Yes.
publishing them by themselves, and they're doing really well. So right now we have a lot of developers who have published their own games by themselves, and we have a lot of studios. We have Kunta Content, Jiwe Studios, Usiku Games, who have their own place here at Diamond Plaza. We have Black Rhino. We have Cheza Cheza. The founder is called Daniel Masharia. He set up at ADMI. He's a lecturer, and he even built his game Nairobi with the students.
Wow.
So a lot of guys are doing different things. The guys who pursue the NGO route, the guys who pursue like there's also Mekan Games. Mekan Games, the guy, he's called Evans. He was even 30 under 30 a few years ago.
Wow.
Because he had a game called Mr. President, which he didn't focus on Africa. He focused on the US. I think he got over 1 million downloads. I think, like 10 million downloads from the US.
Yeah.
And he made a lot of money. I think even 1 million USD, but he had a publisher.
Because gamers are not really thinking who made this game. Gamers just think, is this game interesting, and how many people have rated it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys are doing different things, and then we're learning from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you're also doing different things, and it's good to know that there's, growth within that space here. And even when I check my TikTok, and I sometimes bump into some mobile gamer reviewers, and some of the games are Kenyan produced games. I'm just curious now in terms of adoption as well. Are you seeing more Africans getting into the gaming industry? When we had a prior conversation, you mentioned that we were talking about in-app marketing and how comparatively to abroad, here maybe it doesn't work as effectively. So, and perhaps still how mentality-wise people are still not used to hearing that African game or a Kenyan game and think that it's going to be a really cool game. So curious to know about, from your research, product adaptation.
So in terms of product adaptation, I can even use a use case. There's this guy called Sunday Akor. He's from Nigeria, and his game he has a game called Virago. So he's leveraged TikTok. You've mentioned TikTok.
Yes.
So this guy, his core skill and experience was in digital marketing. So he's been posting a lot about this game called Virago. He has like over 1 million followers.
Wow.
No, he has like 600,000 followers on TikTok, and he gets views like over 1 million.
Wow.
And that's amazing.
That is amazing.
So like Virago is about a certain girl, going through dating, and so very many societal issues are handled within that game. And you'd find people like, arguing within the comments. They're talking about, no, she shouldn't have talked to that boyfriend. He's an ex, he's violent, and he's built such a great community around his game, which has really now, in terms of revenue, like we were talking to him like last month about just his journey and how he does his things. He told us like the lowest amount of money he's made in a month is like 1,000 USD. Like 1,000 USD. And he's like, and his markets are mainly not even Africa. There are guys from abroad, and they just like his content.
Yes.
So for him, content really, he leveraged content.
Yes.
And so it works for him. So in-app purchases worked for him. Guys are advocates for his product and community. He has a big community. In-app advertising, it's something big in Africa, I would say. It would work in Africa in terms of user acquisition. So if you have a lot of players, you're acquiring a lot of players, then your ads can work, because there's a metric called CPM. Basically, for example, for this number amount of impressions or views, you get a certain amount. Like, let's say, for 1,000 views, you get $10.
Yeah.
So now, it's not that high in Africa, the CPM value, because of conversion.
Yeah.
But now the challenge is you have to get a lot of users. Yeah.
You do have to get a lot of users. It's more or less the same on how YouTube works as well in monetization. They do pay you per 1,000 views, but comparatively to out there and what we have here, it's significantly less. But also we have, I guess, less advertising revenue that comes in that affects what that CPM is. Okay, I want to now pivot slightly to the next step that I think you also shared with me, which is not just looking on a B2C facing external games, but B2B. I think if someone is listening, maybe you can maybe they're curious about, okay, how can, you know, this kind of technology be integrated on a B2B level? I was also very curious when you told me that, so maybe you can share some insights.
Yeah, so there are various use cases. It's actually been done abroad. It's even saturated abroad. In Africa, it's not yet been explored. So for one, these things like gamification. Gamification is basically making your experiences more interactive and more immersive. So for example, I can talk about gamification in marketing. So gamification in marketing is like use cases is like basically using XR, you know, AR and VR, so augmented reality,
Yes.
virtual reality.
Yes.
Maybe a use case is like, you know, when you're having an activation, maybe you're a brand like, you know, any FMCG brand and you're having an activation, people come to your booth, you know, maybe you're selling skincare products, or maybe and you want to show more immersion. Yes, of course, you might tell, you know, the ladies use this lotion, use this makeup, but then you can also use immersion where you're showing how to, you know, like use this product. You have a video over there, and now you're showing how to use this product on a certain model within the VR. And you're able to see how it changes her face and maybe you don't want makeup on your face at that moment.
Yeah.
So like, that's just one example. It can even be FMCG and somebody comes to your booth, your activation, and you know, they're just interacting with your brand, because right now even brands are looking to have more interaction.
Yes.
Where somebody interacts with your brand, now they remember your brand, and you know, you affect their emotions instead of you just saying, oh, come and try this or look at this. No, it's more interaction, it's more memory, it's more emotion, and now somebody goes back home remembering this interaction with their brand. So that's gamification in marketing. And then we have edtech, of course, edutainment. So basically making games more interactive.
That's a word.
Yeah, it's actually a word.
Edutainment. People
edutainment.
are just coming up with things these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Proceed.
So yeah, we have edutainment, making, I don't know, maybe if you're a child. For me, when I was a child, maths used to be so hard. Like I struggled so much. But then normally the issue is attitude. A lot of children might have a negative attitude towards, you know, maths, or even it can be a language or whatever. And now games make it much more interesting. For example, if it's small children,
Yeah.
and you're trying to teach them mathematics, then you can put them in situations where a child has gone to a shop and they need to count, you know, they've bought a product, now they need to count change and things like that. So things like multiplication, division, and all those things, using real life situations for them to now enjoy the learning process. So it's actually about enjoying the learning process. And now games make it, it's, of course, some people might say, oh, this game, it's distracting the child.
Yeah.
You know, learning is a serious thing. No, but learning should be enjoyable. So we're trying to change that attitude. And sometimes even when I talk about edutainment, it's not only for children. You can even teach financial literacy through games. Yeah. So
I think we need to be more open-minded in the use cases of how this is done. And also, I don't know if you're willing to share, but I want to just get a feel or a ballpark, and maybe how much it would cost someone to implement gamification, for example, in a booth for makeup. Not necessarily from you guys and what you're doing, but just to give my audience a feel of, okay, is this something that they should integrate, and what the implications are?
So it depends, because when you're thinking about development, first of all, let's say a marketing agency approaches you and they don't know anything about games and how it will help them reach their goals, their client goals. So you'll be like, okay, first of all, what are you trying to do? Maybe maybe they've done about a bit of research, and they're like, okay, we have noticed that a lot of people play games in Kenya, and we want to tap into that market. So we are like, okay, sawa. For us game developers, we can provide you with games which are already popular, or we can create for you a game and then you can plug in your brand. Maybe like the character that maybe they've been hit by an enemy, or their health bar has gone down, and they take Nescafe.
Yeah.
And they drink it and their health bar goes up. So you see, you're already plugging in a brand within the game.
Yes.
So that's now, we're giving them our game, and you can use this, and we are incorporating the brand elements.
Yeah.
And there's also the element of us now even building games for them. So now, they're having an activation, and we're building specific games for them. I can even give you a use case. Like we had the golf tournament just a few...
the DP World Tour?
Yes,
okay,
yes. The one which happened like last month. And, people are there at the golf course. It was at Mudaiga. People are there at the golf course, and, they're watching people play golf.
Yes.
But maybe they also want to be a part of the action. So we can create an immersive kind of experience where now you can even play golf. Because, when people go for events, like at a concert, and you've seen people standing in this platform, and then the camera goes around, and people are and doing all that stuff. That's actually immersion. That's experiential. So gaming can actually be leveraged in experiential. So many use cases. It's just a lot of creativity, but down to the cost, it depends on actually what you want. It can range from, we have something called hyper casual games. Hyper casual games are very simple, very fast paced, something like Flappy Bird.
Okay, yeah.
And then you have casual games. It has more content, more intricate design elements. That's like a Candy Crush. And then now you have core games. That's for
Deep
content.
Yeah.
Deep. It's very deep.
God
things
of
like
War.
Exactly. God of War. More storytelling and things like that.
What was the same at TCG games?
Unajua nakucheki, Yeah. So depending on that level of what you're looking for, if it's just a simple game which is hyper casual, a bit of content, a bit of good design, it's aesthetically pleasing, or you need, something more complex, more investment, more long-term play, then you'll go. So all of these have different budgets, and even different timelines of development. So
So he's not giving us a ballpark. It's understandable.
I don't want to destroy you guys.
No. It's okay, because there's the other fear that people have is that game is expensive to develop.
Yeah.
And so is that a myth or is that factual? But a lot of tech products are expensive to develop. But in my mind, gaming takes a lot more investment. So would you say that it's worth the bargain? The cost-benefit analysis, given that maybe adaptation, as you've said, may not be in Africa only, and it's like a global perspective. I just want to know how worth it is, given the everything that you know now, and what advice maybe you have for someone who's looking to get into the space.
Yeah, so to be honest, it can be expensive because of the resources, especially being in Africa. And us, like as developers, we have to buy tools which are, premised on like USD and all that.
Yes.
And also getting the time to outsource work, or getting internal developers, designers, and all those practitioners who will help you. It can get expensive.
Yes.
But then I think now the job for us developers is to actually communicate ROI. If we shoot you a quote and we tell you, okay, this is the budget, it can get to 2 million and even above that. And, any kind of client will be like, that's too expensive for me. So like for us, it's also important for us to be able to
communicate the value.
The ROI.
The ROI, sorry.
Yeah, the ROI, and also the value. The value is so important. And that's even why, even for our studio, when we are for us, we are like, okay, how can gaming make sense for African businesses? And first, we have to understand what does value look like to the African customer, and that's a journey that we are actually going through right now.
Yes.
What does value look like to the African customer, and what works abroad in the West, in the US, in Southeast Asia, in Europe, in UAE, doesn't work in Africa. We have a different type of persona. We have different types of priorities. You know, our economic situation is different. So like, those business skills, negotiation, communicating value, storytelling, and forming long-term relationships that, you know, you don't just shoot a quote and say, okay, this thing is expensive, the production costs are this, so you guys, you better pay. Or no. It's about creating an ecosystem where everyone feels like
They're getting something out of this.
exactly.
Yes. Wow. Thank you, James. I think this was a very insightful episode. I've learned a lot about gaming, the industry, what it takes, and I'm sure that the audience would agree. Before we close off the episode, maybe you can plug in where people can download your games or get to know more or reach out to you for your services.
So you can find us on, we have a website, it's weza.africa. On LinkedIn, you can search Weza Interactive Entertainment. My LinkedIn is James Ahere. Also, my Instagram is James Ahere. Or you can also follow my brother. He's called George Ahere. We're always posting content. Also in Instagram, we have Mzito Dev and also Riziki. So yeah, you can find us there. Our games right now, we're stepping into a testing phase. So we're gonna be shooting out our game to guys to check it out. We'll be doing a lot of, you know, community engagement right now. So yeah, if you're interested, hit us up, and yeah, we're gonna have a fun experience.
Amazing. We're going to leave all the necessary links in the description as well so that you can have a look. Thank you once again for joining us on this episode. And a reminder for you to subscribe if you haven't already, and follow My Tech Story Africa as well on all the major platforms. Thank you for tuning in, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye.